So we've got John Travolta here. He's wearing quite cheap shoes, and when you rub his shoes on the carpet, basically he collects all these electrons on it. Well, he collects a negative charge, okay, and actually it is electrons. It's actually only ever electrons. So when you now he actually just got a shock there, but I didn't want him to get a shock yet, so I'm going to move his hand a lot further away, and let's do it again. So loads and loads and loads of electrons, and now at the moment the electrons are trapped within John Travolta. If he moves his hand towards the door handle, he gets an electric shock. The current, what happens is the excess charge flows from his finger and jumps to the door handle. Now, if he just does a little bit, it won't. He has to move his hand a little bit closer in order for it to be discharged, and that's because not as much of a voltage builds up on him. He has to. So if he does loads and loads and loads of electrons, then basically he only has to move it just a little bit close, and it will discharge it. What's happening is the electrons or the charge is basically jumping that gap, but it will only jump the gap if there's a big enough charge. The question is, why is it that friction causes a static charge to build up in the first place? It's because, so if I come out of this and if I have a look at the picture of an atom, well, so you can see from this diagram that atoms have electrons around the outside. So when one substance touches another substance, comes into contact with another substance, then they rub together, and it's the atoms of one substance are going to be touching the atoms of another substance, but also it's the electrons on the atoms of one substance that are going to be touching the electrons on the atoms of another substance. So if I just draw that out, it'll probably be a bit easier to see what's going on. So we've got the top materials moving to the left, the bottom materials moving to the right, and so they are rubbing. There's friction there. And if we were to look really closely at the surface, where the surfaces that are touching, then on the surfaces will be atoms, and there's atoms throughout, but the atoms on the surface are actually touching each other. So you can imagine there's the nucleus of one atom, and these are the electrons around the outside of that. And then underneath, there's the nucleus of that atom and the electrons around the outside. That one's going that way, that one's going that way. So it's the electrons that are touching each other, and they will get dislodged, and maybe the top might lose electrons, so that will become positive. And maybe the bottom might gain electrons and become negative. So that's why friction causes static charge to build up.